So on Secret Santa last year, the CEO of the company I work for gave me this pasta roller because I told him that making fresh pasta at home is not worth it, and that I'd rather have Diceco pasta every time. And he bought it for me because he wanted me to believe that making fresh pasta is worth it. So I thought this was a good time to get back at really focusing on improving and cooking. And honestly, I've been getting pretty lazy lately. So I've decided to use semolina flour because it was cheap and the demand for it is pretty low right now for some reason. Alright, day one. It was kind of a disaster. I made all the mistakes you can make. For portioning, the package recommends 1.5 cups for 6 people. So I cut that in half to 3/4 of a cup and called that one serving. I also decided to try and use a whole egg and water and salt. On the first day I made the well in the flour way too shallow, and I also thought it was a good idea to use my fingertips to mix the egg into the flour, which I correct in the future. A lot of it stuck to my fingertips, and I didn't have the water ready, so I had to wash my hands and use the measuring cup. I also added the water way too quickly. This is quite a coarse flour, so it hydrates very slowly. So you could be kneading and the dough will suddenly get very, very wet. And standard procedure is after kneading for about 10 minutes, you let it rest for about 20 minutes to soften the dough and let it hydrate. Then I try to flatten the dough as much as possible before putting it in the roller on setting 1, the widest setting. On the first day, the dough was pretty soft, and I tried to fold and knead using the roller, but the bottom clamp got undone, and I was too scared that if I let go of the pasta, it would just droop into the sink. I still didn't clamp the thing correctly, but I still went on. I ended up only using thickness 2 multiple times for day 1. Also, this handle can just come off. Unfortunately, there's no hole for the handle on the other side, so making the noodles on this countertop is quite difficult. Okay, rookie mistake here. Not putting semolina on the dough before making the noodles, and they definitely got stuck. The pasta feels so soft that I thought I could just cook it for 1 minute. However, I think cook time for semolina pasta is quite deceptive. And for the first day, I just stirred around the sauce in the pot off heat. This is not how I want to serve this dish, but my bowls were dirty that day. And the sauce I used, I wanted it to be something that I could eat every single day. So it's just sun-dried tomatoes, oregano, and red chili flakes, and just a little bit of salt. And I'm using Greek oregano, which is more lemony than Italian oregano, but it's still pretty good for this dish. And all I did was blend it. A mistake on day 1, I tried to make only 1 serving of sauce at a time, which is not enough to blend properly with a stick blender. In the future, I make 4 to 5 days worth of sauce and just store it in the fridge. And I tried to cover and steam the pasta for another minute because it was too tough, but it did not help. I added salt, pine nuts, and parmesan to finish, and some good extra virgin olive oil at the end. Day 1, the sauce was not blended well, and the texture of the noodles were tough but not gelatinous, which is kind of what I'm going for. In my pasta making log, I wrote down that maybe I should try to cook the pasta longer and not change anything for now. Verdict, day 1, it was edible but horrible. Fast forward to day 2, only difference is that I realized I could detach the noodle maker and just roll in the air, which is a little bit easier. I went with a 3-minute cook time, and it is slightly better but still had that strange toughness without being chewy. And skipped to day 4. I began to suspect that the egg white was the problem because egg whites usually make baked goods tougher, like in angel food cake. And I wrote in my notes that I'm stubborn and I don't want to waste the egg whites. And day 5, I tried adding more water, which makes kneading easier, but rolling more cumbersome because you have to add semolina to the dough every couple passes to prevent sticking. And for pasta with egg whites, day 5, this is probably the best texture you can get. And day 6, I finally removed the egg white, and it's definitely the best one so by that time. And the toughness has disappeared, and kneading it feels more like kneading just regular bread. And this whole time I rested for 20 minutes. But on day 7, I tried to cut it to 10 minutes and see what happens. And the result is maybe a slightly chewier version of the vacuum packed pasta at the grocery store. It's pretty good, but still not what I'm looking for. And sometimes I screw up by contaminating the egg yolk, which results in terrible pasta, but that's okay. On day 9, unfortunately, I suffered from a head injury that day, and I'm completely fine. I went to the doctor, but I couldn't film with my GoPro because I need to put it on my head. So the other days after this, I had to just film the result with my phone. So yes, I only have footage of me screwing up making the pasta, and I don't have footage of me folding perfectly, cutting perfectly. And something I realized while making pasta every day is that no matter what happens to the dough, there seems to always be a way to save the dish. For example, if the dough is too wet, you can add semolina on it and then roll and knead with the roller. It will result in a heavier dough that falls on itself, but it can still taste pretty good. My preferred texture is to have a slightly drier dough that hydrates after the 20-minute rest, and then using no semolina and just rolling it through. It has a harder kneading process but easier rolling process. On day 11, it was the only day I used the thin cutter. It actually turned out really great. It had an almost chow mein like texture, and I wanted to try it the next day, but I broke the pasta cutter, so I was forced to use a knife, and it resulted in the best pasta so far. As Bob Ross says, we don't make mistakes, just happy little accidents, I guess. On day 13, I tried to knead a little more water and knead more with the roller. And in my notes I wrote, almost perfect. I need to practice cutting noodles and use semolina in between layers to prevent sticking. On day 14, I tried to add a little bit of oil, which makes kneading easier, and I can get away with a slightly drier dough, which again is very easy to roll, and no semolina required. I think the cook time of 2 minutes was too little for this version, so on day 15 I got the perfect cook time again, back to just over 3 minutes, and day 16 I wrote perfect roll, perfect cut, very little waste. And this day 16 was the best, because afterwards, day 17, I ate hamburgers that day, so I tried to cheat and use less flour, but still use 1 egg yolk. I wrote in my notes that it was the worst pasta since day 1. I didn't even film it. Day 18, I broke setting 1 of the roller, and on the final day, I broke setting 2, 3, and 4 on the roller, essentially making it worthless. The pasta actually turned out okay, but it was very hard to shape and make the noodles. Also, on the last day, I cut the noodles in the wrong direction, so I got all these short noodles. Yeah, the journey ends for now. I think I got pretty good at making semolina only fresh pasta. I could probably get closer to my desired texture if I used semolata, which I think is the finer version of semolina flour, or 00 regular flour. Actually, a coworker of mine said she would give me her roller from the mid-90s, so maybe I'll make a part 2 one day. But for now, I think I'm gonna start making other dishes. And I think I've been losing confidence in myself, but just seeing improvement in something, even in something random like this, helps me convince myself that I can get through this struggling phase. And back in high school, I would make aglio e olio pasta and French omelets for every day for 3 months, trying to get it to be what was in my head. And I don't even like French omelet. If I had to do this for another dish, it would be for shen jian bao, but I feel like it's much harder to grind out, and I don't know if I could eat meat every single day. Anyways, thank you for listening to me ramble, and have a nice day.